Good morning and welcome to our UBC Learning Circle, Red River Jigging, our physical, mental, social, and cultural health with Dr. Heather J.A. Foulds and Mr. Scott Duffee. Today's conversation is presented in partnership with the Center for Excellence in Indigenous Health. We'd like to thank the First Nations Health Authority for generously funding the UBC Learning Circle and allowing us to have these conversations. Before we formally begin, I would like to acknowledge with respect and gratitude that I'm joining you from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Please feel free to introduce yourselves and the nation you're calling in from in the chat box. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Seren Squawkin. I am the Learning Circle manager. I am Syilx Okanagan on my mother's side and Hickory Apache and Belgian settler on my father's side. I will be the moderator for today's discussion, and joining us working behind the scenes is Cynthia, production coordinator, and Kira, our program assistant. They'll be in the background interacting with everyone in the chat. And finally, before we get into today's discussion, I will provide a gentle heads up that the topics covered may be sensitive or emotionally triggering. Please make sure that you're looking after yourself, and if at any point in time you need to talk to an elder, friend, family member, or counselor, don't hesitate to do so. And we will have some prompts in the chat. Now I'll turn it over to Heather and Scott to introduce themselves.
Good morning in BC. My name is Heather Foulds. I'm Métis. My Métis family comes from Brusaylor and Langmead, Saskatchewan. My family names are Foulds, Sayers, Bremner, Swain, Fiddler, Adams. And I have been I'm joining you from Homeland of the Métis in Treaty 6 territory. I've been working here at the University of Saskatchewan and have had the wonderful opportunity of working together with Scott and learning the Red River Jig since I have moved back to our homeland. And we've worked together for the last 7, 8, 9 years, something like that, Scott, on the Red River Jig and working through different ways of online or in person, and so happy to be able to share this with you today.
Scott, did you want to introduce yourself now?
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm in the chats. I just want to start visiting people in the chats here.
No worries.
It's really nice to see everyone in the chat room, like saying where they're from and stuff. So yeah, I'll say where I'm from. My name is Scott Duffee. I'm a Chifnia. I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I got Métis ancestors from Red River, like so many people do. The clan that I come from is the Lagimodier clan, so that would be within the French-speaking Métis of the Red River. So the history in the family I come from is stories about the resistance, stories about our leader, who was a family member, and stories about how we went underground with our identity after the resistance and rebellion, and then how we re-emerged as Métis a couple generations later, while the last living ancestor from Red River was still alive. That's when we re-emerged, just in time, while she was still alive and could share her stories. And that was my great-great-grandma, who was La Rivière from Red River. Anyways, so yeah, but I've always lived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, so I'm kind of part of that diaspora of Métis people that kind of left the Red River just before the 1900s. That's about all I've got to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, so I'm going to share some of the research that we've been doing. We've had a number of different projects Scott and I have worked together on, and we have ongoing, and we have some really wonderful findings to share, and then Scott's gonna teach us some Red River jigging, so we get to practice what we're talking about. So just a very brief overview. I'm kind of assuming that people sort of know some Métis history, or I understand who we are, but we're a distinct Indigenous nation. Our homeland in the Prairie Provinces in Ontario, a little bit in the Peace region of BC. And we have our own language, our own culture, history. We arose kind of in those fur trade contexts, but politically distinctive, cohesive. We are our own recognized nation with our own language and so forth. So our traditional culture was, like many Indigenous communities, mutual responsibility, kinship networks, community, our health and well-being tied to those community and culture aspects, and including community and environment in some of those culture and holistic aspects. From a more health and maybe research perspective, we're caught kind of between bad data and no data. So there's not a lot about Métis people that's been explored so far. A lot of it is used self-declaration, which includes a lot of people who maybe come from other lands in Canada or other non-status ancestry rather than our specific nation. So it's not quite as clean or as clear. We have some experience, some understanding of some health experiences of Métis people. And what we do know is that it's different from non-Indigenous people, but Métis health is also different from First Nations people. So it's our own unique experience. So some of the work that I've been doing and some of the work that this builds on is the idea that our identity and our community and our culture and those kinship connections might be part of those things that are influencing health and well-being and might be some factors specific to Métis people. So building on those ideas of culture and community and connectedness, the Red River Jig is that first step. So the Red River Jig is considered the most famous Métis dance, certainly not limited to Métis people, as I'm thinking Scott might share some stories about how important this dance is. And it brings together pieces of different dances, so First Nations, Irish, Scottish, French, Scandinavian, and that the dance has been an important aspect of that living proof and culture of Métis people, that it's an example of our Métis nation existing and continuing to exist. So the first project that we did to look at Métis people is to talk to people who are dancers. So talking to people who have been Métis dancing, doing the Red River Jig, they're competent and experienced dancers. So they're able to dance the double step at some point in their lives. They may not be able to do that anymore, but they're able to dance the Red River Jig. And as Scott will be teaching us, the double step is not the easiest step to pick up immediately. I know that I've been working on it for a number of years and just starting to get to that point. So these people are fairly experienced dancers, and we had talked to some of them in a group, some of them individually. We had a range of ages, a range of genders, 13 participants we've had conversations with so far. So the questions we asked them were, what is their experience dancing Red River Jig? What is their motivation? How do they feel physically when they're dancing? How do they feel mentally when they're dancing? How does this compare to other types of activities or exercise they might do? And how does dancing the Red River Jig contribute to your health and well-being? And then how important is culture and the historical aspects of the Red River Jig to you? And there's four main themes that we heard from these conversations, four main ideas that came forward. And the first one was about community, that the Red River Jig is community, and it's about building those bonds and establishing community and feeling that sense of belonging when you're dancing and dancing in a group. The second concept that we heard about was that sense of pride and awareness and that culture and identity. And so we heard from some participants about, as Scott indicated earlier, that underground identity. So reclaiming that identity through learning the dance. And some people talked about embracing and reclaiming those aspects of culture that we didn't maybe have that opportunity to learn in the more recent generations. And so this is a way of reclaiming that part of our identity. The third theme that we heard about was about you're using your mind, you're using your body, and you're using your spirit. So that whole approach, holistic approach to well-being, that the Red River Jig engages all of those aspects. So it is a dance, so there's a physical aspect to it, but also that mental aspect of thinking about the steps and what's your next step and planning it out. That spiritual connection while you're dancing, and helping you to feel more connected. So one participant said, transports you to a different place, so you feel more engaged and more comfortable, and your spirit is strengthened when you're dancing. And the fourth theme we heard was about the Red River Jig being like therapy and healing for people, that they, from those historic traumas of like not knowing your identity or not knowing your culture, maybe in the education system in past years was not very friendly towards Indigenous people. So some of those traumas coming forward. People talked about, like, so the quote I have is, dancing keeping me sober, as something that helps you. So both those historic traumas and your personal experience, and that the way that this can be a way to heal. So in conclusion from these interviews, what we heard is that the Red River Jig is vital to cultural identity and connection and maintaining Métis people's health and well-being, and that it's also a conduit to bringing people back to community and identity and culture and a sense of pride. So we started talking with experienced Red River Jiggers, and then the next thing that we've been working on is to look at the fitness and the exercise aspects of this. So we brought people who are experienced Red River Jiggers, and we're now measuring people who are more recreational dancers who are learning. So I don't have those results to share at this time, but we're still working on this study. And the goal was that they were able to dance for at least 3 minutes, and that they could dance up to 10 minutes. And I will say that everybody danced up to 10 minutes, which is amazing. So we had them set up with this mask, so we can measure the oxygen that they're breathing and measure the carbon dioxide they're breathing out. And then we can get a sense of how hard their body's working when they're dancing, and how efficient their body is at using the oxygen. And then when they were doing the Red River Jig, so the first time they came in, they ran on a treadmill, gives us kind of a baseline to compare to, and they go up to their maximum to get a sense of how fit they are. And then they came back, and we put the mask, and we put all these sensors on their body so that we can, and I'll show you a little avatar that we made in the next slide, to see their movements. And then we can count their steps and the motions and look at different parts of the body and how fast things are moving. And we had them fill out a questionnaire about how are you feeling right now, how anxious are you, kind of get a sense of how they were doing, and then how were you doing after you dance, and how does that is dancing able to help us to feel better. Okay, so here's an example of one of those avatars that we put together. So we can see the dancers, and we can count their steps and how much their feet are moving. Get a sense of that body motion through the dance. See a little bit of a preview of what's coming. So we had 5 experienced dancers, and both men and women, and they'd been dancing for quite a long time. So 18 years on average, sometimes much longer. So they're very experienced individuals. So that first treadmill test, we measured their oxygen they were breathing, and on average was 43 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram per minute, which would be a very good category. So they're pretty fit, and they were reporting 360 minutes of exercise every week. So the recommended for general population health benefits is 150. These people are doing a lot of exercise. So they're practicing their dance, I'm guessing, a lot and engaging a lot. So this is the steps. So from those videos, those little avatars, we went through and counted how many steps they're making and how many times their weight is transferring from one foot to the next, or just tapping or scuffing your foot. So we can get a sense. And as you can see, it's pretty consistent. So even though they were dancing for the full 10 minutes, they were doing the same level of dance for the full 10 minutes. So you can see they're getting somewhere in the 2 to 250 steps per minute. So a couple of minutes, you're at 1,000 steps, and you're getting your steps in pretty quick in this dance. So this is looking at their heart rate. And again, you can see that their heart rates, they're maintaining that intensity for the whole time. The maximum that we measured during the dance, 185, we would expect to be for a population that's about 35. That would be their max. So they're pushing themselves to the max at some point during the dance, and they're maintaining that intensity. So 60% of their reserve would be an intense level of exercise, and they're working at about 85 to 90%. So it's a pretty intense dance. And similar kind of measurements. This is the oxygen that they were measuring. So the max that I showed you previously, 43, I think 43.5. And they pretty much hit their max at some point during the dance and maintained that intensity for 10 minutes. And we would generally say 45% would be enough to improve your fitness. If you're exercising at that intensity, you're going to get better. And again, they're at like 70, 75%. So definitely enough to improve your fitness and improve your health through this dance. So one more comparison here of how it might compare to other types of exercise. So in this 8 to 10 minutes, we're looking at like running pretty fast biking, step aerobics, maybe step aerobics with weight. It's a pretty high intensity dance, and a bit more intense than some of the other similar dances that compare to or that draw some of the steps from this dance. So while they were dancing, we had them wear a watch, which of course I think just about everyone has a watch that counts your steps these days. And we were, how accurate is that watch at counting your steps when you're dancing? So when we looked at transferring feet side to side, it's not a great correlation. But when we add in some of those taps and scuffs, it is so your watches are getting some of those taps and some of those scuffs, but about 80%. So it's underestimating by about 20%. So you're probably doing more steps than your watch tells you you are if you're dancing Red River Jig. And then the last thing, that questionnaire about how are you feeling right now? So before and after the treadmill test, feeling similar. So statistically, with those 5 participants, we don't have a significant result to share, but I'm thinking that there might be something going on here that once we have a few more people, we could say that the Red River Jig helps you to feel better compared to running on a treadmill. So all in all, this is an intense exercise. It's definitely enough to improve your fitness, even for people who are quite active. Some can be people who are proficient and experienced dancers, high intensity. It's similar to fast running or biking or aerobic with weights. Your wristwatch is probably underestimating the number of steps that you're counting, but it is getting most of them. And then we need a bit more information, but there might be that the Red River Jig could help you feel better. So if you're feeling anxious, maybe dancing the Red River Jig might be something to do to help you feel better in the moment. So the next project that we've been working on, we have brought people together and drawn on Scott's amazing expertise. Everybody raves about him as an instructor. So he's been teaching Red River Jig classes. And so people have been coming and dancing classes with Scott. And we've been looking at how their health and well-being is changing before and after they learn this dance. So is this a way to improve their health and their well-being? So we had 49 participants who have done the assessments. The classes are open to anyone, and we've had people joining. When Scott's doing remote classes, we've had people across the country, I think, joining him. So not everyone did the health assessments, but we measured some of the health measures. They did at least 8 weeks of jigging, and then we measured their health afterwards. 40 of the 59 were women or females, 20 were Indigenous people, not all Métis. There were some First Nations people as well. And again, that kind of similar age group. So we looked at a number of different measures, trying to look at that holistic spectrum. So we had a questionnaire about your connection to your culture. And the questionnaire we used is more general population because we had non-Indigenous participants as well. And I'm not going to show you those results, but at this point we didn't see anything significant, which, I mean, most people, this is our more than half of our participants were not Métis, so that's kind of, I guess, understandable that this is not necessarily their culture. We did some questionnaires around mental well-beings and self-efficacy and memory, and I am, again, not going to show some of those results. At this point, we haven't seen any statistical changes in those measurements. We did a couple of questionnaires around, or we did a questionnaire around social support, so your connection to your community and your connection to your family and your connection to your friends, and how much support do you feel that you have. And I'll show you those results coming up. We did some physical measurements, and today I'm going to show you blood pressure and heart rate. And then we did some physical fitness. So how high can you jump, which is a measure of your leg strength, your balance, is your balance improving or not? The 6-minute walk is instead of a treadmill test, giving us a sense of how fit you are, and then sit and reach about how flexible you are. So this is the questionnaire about social support. So we had community, family, friend, your perception of support, and your overall support. And we looked at different dimensions. So the male participants, the female participants, the Métis participants, the non-Indigenous participants, and then the overall participants. Sorry, let me go back. So we did see some improvements in community. People are reporting that they have a greater sense of community, a greater sense of family, a greater sense of friends. So they're meeting people in these classes. They're making relationships and building community, which is what we heard in those earlier interviews, that the Red River Jig is a way of building community. So we are seeing that in those classes that we offered as well. These are the fitness, the physical measurements. So systolic blood pressure improved, diastolic blood pressure improved. We see some improvements in health, which we expect, as we saw that this dance is high intensity enough to improve your health and well-being. And then these are the fitness tests. I don't have all of them right here right now, but 6-minute walk. So they're doing more walking. So you're more improving your fitness, which again, we expected. Sit and reach. So you're able to be more flexible, some of those participants. And then leg power overall improved. So you're working your legs doing this dance, and it's showing up in your leg strength. And then the balance test. So we had a couple of different balance tests we did on one leg or tandem with one foot in front of the other. We also had people with eyes open and eyes closed, and we saw some conflicting results here. So the eyes closed, balance actually went down, but the tandem eyes closed went up. And so suggesting, we're thinking that this might be due to some kind of posture. Maybe your posture is improving as you're dancing, and then your balance takes time to catch up. Something to look at. So overall, as we expected, improvements in physical health, that tandem stance balance, we saw improvements, 6-minute walk, and improved sense of community, family, friends, that kind of supports that you were experiencing. So the last project that we've been doing is talking to the people who participated in those dance classes about how the experience was. What did they learn? How did they feel the dance went for them? And that they talked about the Red River Jig, those connections of physical health, also culture and education. So we have brought participants, and we have different sets of questions for Métis participants and for non-Indigenous participants because of the cultural aspect of the dance for Métis people. So we've had 13 non-Indigenous and 10 Métis participants. They had to attend at least 4 classes. So they've done several classes of learning the Red River Jig. So the Métis participants, we asked those same questions from that first study that I shared with you, but also asked about how important is learning this dance? How does the Red River Jig influence your identity? Is there a spiritual significance for you? And what's the most important thing that you learned? Non-Indigenous participants, again, those same interview questions before about motivation and how do you feel physically and mentally, and how important is the culture? So how does this influence your knowledge of Indigenous peoples? How How did your experience influence your knowledge of the Red River Jig? Is there anything you learned that surprised you? How important is it to learn the Red River Jig? What was the most important thing you learned? And then did taking these Red River Jig classes, did that experience influence your relationship or your engagement with Indigenous peoples? So starting with the Métis participants, there's three main themes that came forward from these conversations. And the first one talked about those spiritual and family connections. And people talked about that they're dancing with their ancestors, that these steps are connecting them back to their family and they're feeling more connected to their lineage and their history. Again, that idea that your spirit is awake when you dance. And some conversations similar to those earlier conversations about, those lost generations in the middle where they didn't have that connection. So reestablishing those connections. The second theme that we heard about was about the Michif language. And they talked about we may not have the language, but we have the dance, that our language is endangered, but we can continue the dance and we can continue this important part. They also, some of them talked about, I started learning the dance and now I'm ready to learn the language, or this is the first step to me going towards learning Michif language, that it's an opportunity to open those gates and to feel confident in that direction. And the third theme that we heard was about the dance leads us home, and that this tradition helps you, it connects you to your people. There's something inherent about the dance that embodies our history as Métis people. So I'm learning that and connecting with that history and that feeling of coming home when you can learn this dance. And then for the non-Indigenous participants, there were, again, three main themes that we heard. The first theme was about education, and they talked about learning the Métis dance. The Red River Jig was a celebratory, strength-based approach to learning about Indigenous education. They learned about the history of Métis people, Indigenous peoples, while they were learning this dance, and that they hadn't had that opportunity, that there's so much knowledge and story embedded in the dance that it provided that education of about Métis people that they felt was very positive, and they really appreciated, especially when we think about the focus on the negative historical impacts that they have in schools. The second theme they talked about was that we're living on the same lands, we're sharing these lands, and we're neighbors, but we don't connect. So learning the Red River Jig gave us a chance to meet our neighbors and to get to know the people who we're sharing these lands with. So that bridge between, we're kind of feel siloed, but we get to know each other and we can build that connection. And then the third theme was about that physical fitness and physical activity, that they're improving. They learn how to breathe when you're dancing, because you have to breathe throughout that time. So that physical benefit. So in conclusion, the Métis people, that the spiritual and historical and cultural importance of the Red River Jig, the questions we asked about how do you feel mentally, how do you feel physically, and the things that they said that the benefits they got from learning was about connecting to community, connecting to ancestors, and that gateway to the Michif language. For non-Indigenous people, they talked about cultural enlightenment and education and building those relationships, and then some conversations around the physical benefits. So overall, that this dance is benefiting us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, culturally, bringing our communities back together. And I wanted to acknowledge the community of people who've made this work possible. Scott, of course, is a main important part of this work. The Lieutenant and the Mituk Métis dance group that we started this project with, and all the community and instructors and dancers and participants, the funding agencies, the co-investigators who share their expertise in all of the different measures, and then the big team of students and research assistants who've made this work possible. So I just wanted to say Kishti Marci to everyone who's made this work possible. And our next step is to dance. So let's dance.
Okay, right on. So the Red River Jig kind of has a basic structure to it. It's got a high part, And the low part, so I'll give you an example of the high part. It sounds like this. So at the end of that high part, you can kind of hear this diddle-a-doo, and that tells you it's time to stop and do a fancy step. So in the high part, you do a jig step in a circle. That's traditional Métis style anyways. And then when the low part happens, sorry, I have to, when I play the Red River Jig on the fiddle, I actually have to tune one of my strings differently. So I'll do that real quick here. Okay, so I had to tune my lower G string to an A, and so the low part of the Red River Jig sounds like this. And in the low part, you stop and you do a fancy step. So keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that the beat is about 120 beats per minute. So that's 2 beats per second. And in every beat, there's 4 counts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's quite a lot of counts in every beat. So, but what do you want to try to focus on? I'll play the Red River Jig, and if I could ask everyone to try to find that beat. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that 1, that's the anchor beat. So try to find that. Okay, so I'll play the jig now, and I want you to try to connect to that beat if you can. Okay, here it is. All right, so that's the beat of the Red River Jig. So it's called a Red River Jig because it's named after jigging, which is a dance. But the fiddle tune itself is not a jig. The fiddle tune is what you would call a reel. So reels have 4 counts in every beat, but fiddle tunes that are called jigs have 3 counts in every beat. I'll show you a quick example. So that's a jig called Irishman Heart to the Ladies or something. And so that has 3 beats in every count. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So be careful. If you want to practice jigging, practice to a reel or to the fiddle tune called a Red River Jig. If you turn on a fiddle tune that's such and such jig, it'll have that 3 count and it'll probably mess you up. So just keep that in mind. Just a little thing I like to share, I guess. Now, the other thing that I want to share, we'll get dancing right away, but I just want to share one more thing. A lot of times people don't grow up with fiddle music. I didn't grow up with fiddle music. I grew up listening to like hip hop, R&B, pop music, and sometimes country music. So to me, that was my music. Fiddle music wasn't something I grew up with, so it wasn't really my music. So when I teach jigging, I do teach it to fiddle music, but a lot of times in a jigging class, I'll ask the students, what kind of music do you like? And if they say, well, I like pop or country or disco, so I'm like disco, I say, well, find me a tune that's got about 110 beats per minute to 120 beats per minute, and we'll learn jigging to that. And you know what? That actually works the best. So, but don't tell anyone. I don't want to get in heck for that. Anyways, we'll try doing some basic steps. We'll try it to fiddle music, but if anyone in the chat can think of a song that they like that's around 110, 120 beats per minute with no swear words, put it in the chat and maybe I could play it and we could try jigging to it. So yeah, if you could do that, like I would really enjoy that, to do that with everyone. Okay, so I'll play a reel here. I don't think I'll do the Red River Jig. I'll play maybe Whiskey Before Breakfast. See if that works.
Battery 100%.
Oh, I'm going to turn that up a bit. How's the sound? A little louder maybe? It's good? Okay. Okay, so let's get started. First, we want to kind of loosen up our legs and our arms. We want to make them like overcooked spaghetti. Kind of loosen up. Try to get everything loosened up. Then try to connect to the rhythm of the music. A few bends of the knee. And be really conscious of how that feels when you're shifting your weight from side to side, because that's a really major part of jigging, is you have to shift your weight to do the different steps. So just shift your weight with little bends of the knee. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now what we want to do, we want to get our kicking legs going. So in jigging, there's these snappy kicks. Sometimes they stuff the ground, sometimes they're in the air. You just kick however you want. Not karate style kicks, but just little kicks like this, little snappy kicks. Okay, now let's do that to the rhythm of the music. Awesome. I can tell everyone's doing a real good job. Okay, so let's do that going in a circle. Really good. Okay, let's stay on the spot again. Try to make sure we're connecting to the music. Now, this next part, be really careful. Make sure there's nothing that you can trip on, because we're going to do that going backwards now. Right on. Okay, stay on the spot. Now let's try to double the speed of our kicks. If you're in good shape, like you don't have knee problems or something, just try to double the speed. Slowly speed up. And there, that's double speed. Whew, music saved us there. That's a hard one. Okay, another song's coming on. Whew. Okay, let's go the half speed again. Let's do our kick walk. Okay, stay on the spot. Now, backwards. But be careful, okay? All right. Now we're going to try to double the speed again. Just slowly speed up at your own pace. And that's the super fast kicks. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! Right on. Okay. Try to keep the heat. Stay connected to the music. Get used to that feeling. You're shifting your weight from side to side. Connecting with the music. Little bend to the knee. Ooh. All right. So now I want to do a bit of a different kind of a kick. Like this last kick was pretty lively. But there's another way to do the kick, and that's more with a slide. So you can just do like that. So let's try that super fast. Slowly speed up. All right, let's do that for about 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh man, you guys are wearing me out already here. Jeez. Whew. All right, loosen up a bit. Get the arms and legs like overcooked spaghetti. So now I want to try one more type of kick, and that's where we do a cross. Oh, just wait, I gotta put more music on. Actually, let's leave this on. Okay. Whew. Okay, we're gonna slow down these kicks. And we're gonna practice crossing when we kick. There we go. So from the side it would look like that. So the trick with this cross kick is it's kind of two kicks. It's kick, cross, kick, back, kick, cross, kick, back. That's kind of how it is in really slow motion. And so now let's catch up to the rhythm of the music. Good. Okay, I hope everyone's feeling pretty comfortable with this because I want to incorporate the other style of kicks pretty soon here. Let's do this for another 10 seconds. Just try to, get your swagger in there, really feel the rhythm of the music. Try to have some fun, because all we're doing is dancing. It doesn't really matter if you get it right or not. Alright, so now, what do we want to do? We want to connect our fast kicks with a couple of crosses. 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. 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 And there's that other style of kick we can do too, which is more of a slide. 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. Cross, cross. Okay, I want to practice this to the last bit of the song here. cross. 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. Woo! Cross, 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. 1, 2, 3, cross. Oh, I'm getting the rubber legs. I think we better take a water break. Okay. Woo! All right. Oh, man, ever good. Whew. Oh, yeah, I had to take a break. I'm getting older, eh? So I can't quite jig the way I used to. Man, I used to jig for a long time. One time, I was in this jigging contest. I'm not going to say who the other guy was because he's actually a famous jigger now. But anyways, I was in this jigging contest with him, and it was the old style, traditional jigging contest. Whew. He was really good. So, him and I tied for first place, which is always bad news because then you got to face off with each other. So I was facing off with him. He was pulling out all these steps, and I prepared the night before. I thought, if we tie, I got to be ready. And I knew he was like incorporating some Irish stuff, like he was doing these kicks. He was jumping up and kicking in the air. So he's doing these steps, and he'd jump up and kick, and I'd jump up and kick, and whew, I kept up to him pretty good. 15 minutes, him and I were there, facing off, just squaring off with each other. Holy smokes. But then he got me. He had a step I didn't know. So I got second place that time. But I jigged a long time, 15 minutes with him. It's like almost like sprinting for 15 minutes. So that's how healthy jigging can make you. Okay, now we're gonna slow things down. I came in kind of hot and heavy there, boy. Okay, let's slow it down a bit. So I want to teach you now a very basic step called the resting step. Very basic, and you can do that as your jig step when you go in a circle. So put on, I'll do the Red River Jig now. That's what I'll do. Okay, doing John Arcan version here. Okay, so let's get at it here again. Okay, so this is actually the fiddle tune, the Red River Jig. So try to connect to the rhythm. Whew. Before we do the resting step, let's review what we just did. We did a very fancy step. It's a fancy step we just did, and it's like this: 1, 2, 3, cross, cross, 1, 2, 3, cross, cross. That's full speed. So that's what you just learned. So now we're going to go back. We're going to go to a slow, mellow step called the resting step. Okay, so try to connect to the rhythm. Now, what do we want to do? We want to do 3 counts. Here we go. 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. Good. Whew. Now, let's do that going in a circle. 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. 1, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. Okay, on the spot. 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. Now, make sure you got nothing to trip on, because we're going to do this backwards again. 3, 4, 1. In a circle. 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. Okay. Okay, so now stay on the spot. So what we're going to do now, we're going to add a kick. Where the number 2 would be, we'll add a kick. So 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, kick. And in a circle. 3, 4, 1, kick, 3, 4, 1, kick. Okay, on the spot. 3, 4, 1, kick, 4, 1, kick. Now, backwards, but be careful. 3, 4, 1, kick, 3, 4, 1, kick. Okay, let's have another water break. All right. So far we learned a very, very fancy step. So that one's really worthwhile to practice. So my suggestion is you take your iPod or your phone and you get the Red River Jig or some other fiddle tunes on there, or a type of music like rock or country that has 120 beats per minute, and practice that in the morning when you wake up, just 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden you'll be jigging in a few days. So that's kind of the secret, is just to put like just a little bit of practice time. And then the resting step, that one you can do as your main jigging step. And then when the music goes low, you stop, you do your fancy step. So now you have a main jigging step and one fancy step. All right. Whew. Okay, so I'm trying to think of some jigging trivia I could share with everybody. Okay, so there's many influences to the Red River Jig. Many influences. One time I was judging a jigging contest at a powwow, and some of the powwow dancers entered the jigging contest, and you could see the powwow steps were so much in their jigging, and it was beautiful. Expert jiggers. There's this one old man I used to visit. He was 82 years old, and he was French Canadian, but everyone thought he was a Métis where we lived because he wore the sash and he was in my uncle's square dance troupe. So the Métis would hire him to demonstrate the Red River Jig, but he was French Canadian, but he'd put his sash on, he'd do the Red River Jig, and you could see his French Canadian step dancing influence in the Red River Jig. It was beautiful. Okay, here's another one. There's a few steps that I've seen them on the East Coast, and I've seen them on the YouTube from people in the Appalachian Mountains. They call it buck dancing. But there's a few steps that are very similar to that. And I was talking to an elder about it, and she said, yeah, that's from the Scottish. That's from the Scottish influence, those kind of steps. It's another influence. Okay, so I was researching the Red River Jig, and what I learned was that the French voyageurs who came over to the west around Winnipeg, Red River in the late 1700s, and they intermarried and had families. That's where the Métis people came from. There were voyageurs who are actually, there's quite a few Iroquois, or I think Mohawk voyageurs. And a lot of the French Canadian voyageurs were they weren't regular French guys. Like, they were indigenized. They lived according to an Indigenous cultural and governance landscape where they came from, because they often lived trading with folks in those areas, in the Great Lakes areas. So they brought this kind of indigenized French way of doing things. So those cultures are in there. And in fact, there's a few Métis traditions that I've only heard of similar traditions amongst the Iroquois. And I'm kind of scared to say that because I got no Iroquois ancestors at all. But amongst the Métis, there's a rabbit dance and a duck dance. And I've seen YouTubes of dances with the same name amongst the Iroquois. There's an old Métis tradition of doing your circle to the left instead of to the right. Where did that come from? There's only one other culture that I know that does it in the opposite direction, that was involved in the fur trade. So you can see there's all these influences. And that makes jigging something that is really reflects the Métis people. Multiculturalism. Not Canadian multiculturalism that can kind of erase people here and there and include people here and there, but multiculturalism that happens in an Indigenous cultural and governance landscape. That kind of multiculturalism. That's where jigging comes from. Okay, anyways, let's learn a few new steps here. So, we got a fancy step, we got a resting step. Now we're going to practice some moves and we're going to start working on the double jig step. Coming in strong today. All right. We find a fiddle tune. Actually, maybe I'll do a non-fiddle tune for this next one here. Let's see, what would be a good one? Okay, I'm going to play some Alicia Keys. That's what I used to listen to as a young man when I wanted to feel, you know, really profound. Okay, here we go. Now, what we're going to practice is the hop. So when I say hop, like, you can actually hop if you want, or you can just do a heel lift, or you can just feel that hop in your body. You know, just feel a little tightening up of your core muscles and your. So that's kind of, if you don't want to do this or you don't want to hop, you can just feel that hop in your body. But a good thing to do is just to lift the heel and let that heel land on the beat. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so we're doing that equally on both feet. Now, let's get that feeling back of what it's like to have most of your weight on one leg. And the other leg's just kind of dangling there, but it's touching the ground to help you keep balance. Okay, now let's slowly switch to the other leg. Good. Okay. Slowly switch over to the other leg. And one more time on this leg. Good. I hope that's feeling all right for everyone. Because now we want to speed it up. So we're going half speed. Let's double it. And again, most of your weight on one leg. Switch to the other leg. Switch, most of your, pretty well all your weight on this leg. The other leg's just kind of helping keep balance. See how the heel is lifting. Okay, and back to the other leg. Good, really good. Alright, so let's loosen up. Try to connect to the Alicia Keys here. Just pretend you're in grade 4. You're at your first school dance. You're trying to look really cool for your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Maybe you bite your bottom lip. Really trying to look cool. Okay, and now in the spirit of that dancing, let's break into a double hop. Step, hop, hop, step, hop, hop. Hop, 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 step, hop, hop, step, hop, 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 shift, hop, hop, shift, hop, 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 hop. There's kind of a pause in the hops as you shift, so keep note of that. Hop, hop, pause, hop, hop, shift, hop, 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 hop. Do that in step, hop, hop, step, hop, hop, step. Hop, 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 shift, hop, hop, and backwards, hop, 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 shift, hop, hop, shift, hop, hop. Okay, so let's keep rolling with this here. Gonna find a different tune now. Let's do whiskey again, maybe. Okay. Alright, so let's do that again. First, start by loosening up arm and legs like overcooked spaghetti. Get used to that feeling of shifting your weight. Little bend to the knee to connect to the rhythm of the music. And as soon as you feel comfortable, you're going to break into our step. Hop, 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 step. Hop, 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 hop. On the spot and backwards. Step, hop, 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 step, hop, hop, step, hop, 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 hop. Okay, let's take a little breather. Now, just for fun, let's try doing this at half speed. Just to see if it helps. It might help you get connected to the step. So here's half speed. Step, hop, hop, step, hop, hop, step, hop, hop, step, shift, hop, 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 step, hop, hop, step, shift, hop, 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 step, hop, hop, step, hop, hop, shift, hop, hop, shift your weight, hop, 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 hop. Oh yeah, let's loosen up a little bit. We're gonna add a kick, but we'll do it at half speed, okay? Just do your best. Rome wasn't built in a day. Be gentle with yourself. These things take time, but this is your first try. Like you're having a try at it. Okay, here we go. Step, kick, hop, hop. So you shift your weight. You do a little kick on your way up of your hops. Shift, kick, hop, hop. And your kick can either scuff the floor or it can be a kick in the air. Doesn't matter. Hop, 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 hop. Hop, hop. Remember there's a pause in there. Hop, hop, pause, kick, hop, hop. Hop, 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 hop. Hop, hop. Hop, hop, shift, kick, hop, hop. Step, kick, hop, hop. So one of the secrets of it is when you shift, you want to have a little bend in your knee because you got to come back up with a kick. Shift, kick, hop, 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 hop. Now I'm going to slowly speed up, but just go at whatever speed works for you. And full speed. Kick, hop, hop, kick, hop, hop. Back circle. And if you can, circle on backwards. There, so that is the beginning of the double jig step. Let's take a break. Ooh, I gotta get some water here. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Whew. right. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat and see if there's a question or two I could answer. Okay. Yeah, okay. I hope this video is helpful to people. Right on. So, do I have about a few more minutes, or is it time for me to kind of wrap it up?
If you want, there is quite a few questions here. We can probably get going to them.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. The first question is for Heather. Has there been any research with children too, or mostly just adults?
I haven't done any research with children yet. Let me say that. I know there's another group out of Lethbridge doing some work with Red River Jig, but I haven't seen what's come out of that, so I don't know.
And then I guess this one might be for Scott or Heather. This person's tuning in from Kelowna, and they're wondering if you guys know of any classes going on in the Kelowna area.
No.
I don't know about Kelowna, but Scott's going to be teaching online. I could share, if you're wanting to join the online classes he'll be doing, I can...
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I think there's probably tons of people now after doing
Okay, I'm going to put the... I'll put in the chat the email address, and then Samantha's my research coordinator who will connect with you and get you the Zoom links for those, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, cool. Great. That'll be in the chat. And then, so this person wants to learn how to play the fiddle. Where can they get a good one? And are there lessons for the person to learn the traditional way to play as a proud Métis person? This one's for Scott, I'm assuming.
Okay. Heather, do you want to answer that?
Or Heather?
Okay. What do you think, Heather?
I don't know. I mean, I've taken some lessons with John Arcand, but I'm not sure. I know there's different lessons around Saskatoon. I know there's different places. Joseph Desjardins teaches as well. I'm not. I don't know about other places though, but there are lots of fiddle players out there.
There are, and okay, so Heather covered where you could learn. Now I'm going to cover about the fiddle. So my first fiddle was cheap. That thing was so loud and so screechy I could hardly stand to play it. I'd even wear earplugs when I practiced. And forget if someone else is in the house when you're playing that thing. No way. So you get a cheap fiddle, buy one of these. One of these things here. It goes on the bridge and it silences it, tones it down a bit. So that's what I do for a fiddle. Like, to me, just get cracking. Just go get a fiddle. As long as it works, as long as the pegs aren't worn out, you know, they've got a lot of meat on them there, they're not worn out, the strings are good, you know, it's good shape, just get a fiddle. Just get one. Just go get one. And if it's too loud, just put the thing on there. It's cheap to buy this, and you're good. After that, you're good. And then as you play, you can, you know, get a better instrument as you want as you play. I'm always kind of mama sis on the fiddle. That means like not like I've never really mastered the fiddle, so I still take lessons. And my last lessons I took was from Patty Kostruck, and she offers lessons online. There were group lessons online. That was fantastic. Like, you can go in on Zoom, take a lesson. It's really good. So that's what I would suggest as another suggestion. But
do you possibly have a link for that one?
no, you just look her up. She's on YouTube. She does 365 days of fiddle. Like, she's
Oh, okay, she's on YouTube. Cool.
pro. And her son is a really awesome fiddle player in Alberta. He's always sought after. Alex Lamera. Yeah, he's always playing the fiddle.
What was her name again?
Patty Kostruck.
Patty Kostruck. Okay.
Yeah. But just get that fiddle. Just go get that fiddle. That's number one.
That answers one of our questions. So we also that little piece was on the bridge was just a silencer.
Yeah, just a little silencer. You can buy metal ones and rubber ones. The metal ones, ooh, they're heavy. Sometimes they fall off while you're playing, but they silence it a little better. But I gave up on the metal ones. I just used the rubber one. It quietens it plenty enough. So, yeah. And they're cheaper. The rubber ones are cheaper.
This person's wondering if you guys possibly know the dates for Back to Batoche for the new year.
It's always that second last or last weekend in July, eh?
Yeah, I think it's always the third weekend. Yeah,
Yeah, third weekend in July. Yeah, yeah. It's usually pretty consistently. Yeah.
If you're wanting to camp, I would be ready to get on there the minute it opens because the campsites sell out real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you're camping in Batoche, it's hot. The ground is hard like concrete because it's baked by the sun. You can't hardly pound a spike in. So bring good spikes that you could pound in the ground easy. Just be prepared if you're tenting. It's good, but you got to be prepared for the conditions a little more. That was my experience, anyways. Yeah.
And this person's wondering if you have your own YouTube page, Scott, for jigging lessons.
No, I can hardly work my cell phone. Never mind open up a YouTube page. So I'm on the YouTube, but the videos are kind of cringy. Like I just did them in my living room. I did my best. I don't like watching them, but sometimes I do recommend them because I slow everything down and I try to teach all the basics. So I am on there. I sent some links of one of my YouTube videos that a Sask Aboriginal Diabetes Initiative got me to do. And then I also sent some links of some other jiggers that have posted some jigging instructional videos as well.
We'll add those to the chat. And then next question is, what was that dance you mentioned that had Scottish influence earlier?
Oh, buck dancing. Yeah, let me show you.
Okay.
Let me show you. So here, I'll play. This will only take a minute. I'll play a fiddle tune and I'll show you what I mean here. Find a good fiddle tune here I could play. I'll just do the Red River Jig. Okay, so this buck dance, I don't know how to do buck dancing, but I know that there's a Red River Jig step that's very similar. So with buck dancing, they're doing all sorts of stuff like this, eh? It's always this slide hop. So anyways, there's a fancy step in the Red River Jig, and I'll show it to you right now. So, main step in a circle. That's a very old-fashioned fancy step. And this is a very old-fashioned Red River Jig main step. So that old step there, you see that on the YouTube when people are doing buck dancing, but also, okay, here's some more Red River Jig trivia. So I lived on the East Coast for like 5 years. They had some similar fiddle music. I got to learn a little bit of step dancing from the Acadian people. And when I was leaving, some Acadian people were telling me that they're wanting to revive their old-fashioned jigging steps, like the real old ones. And I knew that old-style Métis jig steps were very similar, so I told them, like, I got your steps, just call me. I'll give you back your steps. If you lost them, I'll give them back to you. And what those steps were, a lot of it was that back and forth sliding thing. And they also told me, those Acadian people that I talked to, that they feel very much like those steps came from when they were more closely related and interconnected with the Mi'kmaq people. Because the Mi'kmaq people have a dance, a traditional dance. Now, I'm scared to try to demonstrate it because I don't want to be rude or overstepping my bounds or anything, but that's in there. That you know, this little sliding motion is in there. And my last year, this last summer, living on the East Coast, there was one young Mi'kmaq fiddle player. His name's Morgan Tony. And he decided he wants to play the Red River Jig. So he put the Red River Jig on his CD. And then he came close to where I lived and performed. Well, man, as soon as he played that Red River Jig, I was up there jigging. That's the first time I heard the Red River Jig on the East Coast. It was like a magical moment for me. And this was on a place called Lennox Island First Nation near where we lived out there. And afterwards, he did a traditional Mi'kmaq tune that's been converted into a fiddle tune. And they do dance to this traditional Mi'kmaq fiddle tune. And you could see, like, you can see these influences, eh? And I know that amongst the Métis, I know that Acadian people came out west to work in the fur trade. Like, it just, I don't know, you can't really, I don't think you could deny that. So they would have brought that influence, right? They would have brought that old Acadian steps, which they say come from the Irish Sean Nos style step dancing. And they would have brought that influence from when they were closely related to the Mi'kmaq people. They would have brought that into, you know? So there's all these influences. There's all these influences. Anyways, I'll stop talking now. I kind of get all nerdy when it comes to the Red River Jig.
Thank you, Scott. This person's wondering if you guys teach for children. I know we talked about the research, but do you also teach for children?
Anytime, yeah. If every opportunity, yeah.
Cool. And then another person's wondering about teaching spoons, if you guys know it or how to teach it or know a link to someone or what.
Yeah.
Or if there's a resource online.
Shoot, I'm looking for a set of spoons here. I had some. So the spoons, yes, it can be good to learn the spoons, but be careful if you're in a jam session, don't clack away too loudly. You know, like it's, you got to be careful about that sometimes with the spoons. But it's good to learn the spoons because it connects you to the rhythm of the fiddle tune and to the rhythm of jigging. So I'll demonstrate. Just take a minute. Is that okay? Okay, so there's some old style jig steps that really make this sound here. So here's one of them. Or, so you can hear that. Or another one is this one. That's the old, real old style main jig step. And you can turn that into a fancy step. Kind of a horse gallop thing. So what's happening with that step and that sound, which also happens with the spoons, is you're counting 3 of the 4 beats to every count. So you have 120 counts per minute. There's 4 beats in every count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you're playing the spoons, you catch 3 of the 4, and you don't catch 1, 2, 3. You catch 3, 4, 1, and then number 1 is like the anchor beat. 3 for 1, 3 for 1. So that's the same noise I was making jigging. So if you learn the spoons, you take your spoons and you put them in there and you 3 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 1. So in terms of lessons, I highly recommend just get a set of spoons. Maybe they're even in your drawer. If you have spoons in your drawer, the good kind, they have a little bit of weightiness on the back end of the handle to balance it out. And you put it in between there, you get, after a while, you get used to holding it and just clack away and try to get that 3 for 1, 3 for 1, 3 for 1. Or just practice with your hand. So I really want to share that about playing the spoons because it's like it could really help you connect to the fiddle music. Yeah.
Thank you. The next person is just wondering, would this be like, would you consider non-Indigenous educators doing jigging with non-Indigenous students cultural appropriation?
I love that question, and I appreciate you having the like it takes courage to ask a question like that, and so I appreciate whoever asked that question. So appropriation, that is some sticky business, man. We've all got to be careful, right? Like, I just been talking about Mi'kmaq dances. What do I know? I don't know nothing about that. I just seen it. I experienced a little bit where I lived. I got no business trying to teach that stuff. But I just kind of wanted to share what I saw. So hopefully I'm okay. Hopefully I don't get in heck. But, we all have to be so careful. On the other hand, Métis jigging was made and designed for distinct, diverse peoples to all jig together at the same time. That's one of the main purposes of the Red River Jig. I mean, the Red River Jig also has other purposes. It's a way for Métis to keep our culture, to have festivities at our gatherings, to create festivities when we're in other communities. Métis traders, when they travel, they would get jigging, get the festivity happening, break the ice, ease the tension, people could start trading and connecting. It had that. But so it has these different, it helps us. The jig helps us in these numerous ways. And one of those ways is it's a dance, very basic structure, high part, low part, 120 beats per minute. You play that dance, anyone can bring their dance tradition into that dance, follow the structure of the jig, and you can see their influence of their dance tradition as they're jigging. And that's beautiful. And then you have this diversity and this distinct ways of doing things on the dance floor all together. And you just honor that diversity. And that can create solidarity, not unity, because we're not all one, like we're distinct, we have diversity, but it can create a solidarity by honoring those diversities. So jigging does that. It can do that for us. So it's up to all of us to balance out how we share what we've learned. And I mean, if you're coming at it from a good way, if you're not the other thing about jigging, Cree people jig. I learned half my steps from Cree teachers. and from LGBTQ plus teachers. I've also learned steps from Anishinaabe dancers. Like, it really is a dance that we can all do together. So if it's something you want to teach, just make sure that hopefully you have some mentorship from someone who's like a jigging practitioner. You know, you're not just going out on your own. Like you're in communication with someone who knows a bit more of the culture and stuff, and then that way they'll help you. That's my suggestion, and then that's great. Like look at that old man. He was French Canadian. He did the Red River Jig for people all the time, but he was in connection with the community. You know, so it's about how connected you are in the community to know that your people are okay about it. Okay, that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Our next question is for Heather. What was the inclusion and exclusion criteria for recruitment, the recruitment process for your research?
Yeah, there's a couple of different, depending on the study. So as I think we were talking about earlier, right now it's been all adults, so 18 and over. The ones who are measuring fitness was people who can do the dance proficiently enough that they can do the dance when we're measuring. For the interviews, it was people who have, so the experienced dancers have danced at some point. The people who took the classes, and they didn't have to be my classes, but taking classes somewhere else. And then the participants who did the jigging classes, we used the Get Active questionnaire to make sure that you don't have any extra health risks that associated with exercise. We don't want anyone collapsing while we're dancing, of course, intense dance, but open to people who are generally healthy.
Thank you. And then our last question is for Scott. So you had some links for us at the when we did our tech check yesterday. Did you want to share about those links, and then we could share them in the chat and hit that? That's our
Yeah,
last question.
yeah. One of them is me teaching jigging. It's very slow, but maybe that helps. Another one is an old Métis guy and his daughter. He's a really older guy, but it's a really good demonstration how to learn the steps. The other one is a Northern Cree guy who's just an amazing performance jigger, and CBC did that one, so it's really well filmed and the camera is good and everything. And then I also put Courtney Anaquat on there because she teaches a lot of jigging, like for the study and in the community. And she did a kind of a lesson video, so I shared that as well. Yeah, so I learned from videos. I learned jigging as an adult. I didn't grow up jigging, so, and I did use videos. So it can help, you know, it really can help. Yeah.
Thank you. You guys both did amazing. Did you want to share any closing remarks before we end the webinar?
Thank you everyone for being here. If you all weren't here, I wouldn't be here dancing. And so it's a gift for me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to share the floor virtually, but dance with people. And thank you to Scott for all of his teachings around the Red River Jig.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you so much, Scott and Heather, for the amazing discussion and dancing. It was great to learn about Red River Jig and the research you did, Heather, and yeah, it was just fun and cool, and learning about spoons and all the music and all that stuff, and it was a lot of fun. Just before we end the webinar, we'd love to bring your attention to our upcoming webinars. We have Indigenous Health Administration Leadership Program on January 16th, 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. And then we also have Uplifting Indigenous Knowledge and Culture via graphic recording or witnessing with Michelle. And that'll be on January 21st at 10 a.m. And yeah, all our webinars are free to sign up for on our website at www.learningcircle.ubc.ca. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all at our next Learning Circle. Thank you.